independent, smaller grocers, food co-ops, and other regional operators had some secret sauces that kept them open. There were several items and priorities that were common across all of these stores. And access to an authorization to accept government benefits, both SNAP and WIC, is a big piece of business in the resilience of these stores. And then the Center for American Progress, in a recently published study, found that 27,000 authorized SNAP retailers are at a higher financial risk of closure from the proposed SNAP cuts. The study identified that some 303 counties, including 3,721 smaller grocery stores, are now at risk by the potential SNAP cuts. And that affects not just those households, but it affects jobs and economic viability of communities. Some 65,000 food system jobs are potentially impacted, as they noted. The numbers reflect the real concerns of real people. Today, with insights from the National Grocers Association and tales from the front delivered by our retail store representatives, we hope you will leave today's conversation armed with more data to raise the concerns in your communities. We hope you will educate your local community leaders about the importance of financially incentivizing grocery stores. But let's just get right into the conversation. Let's start by introducing our panel. Our panel today, I am not going to read everyone's bio because we have a great panel here today, but my colleagues have included the bios in the chat, and so I hope you will take an opportunity to look at those bios. And while I'm speaking about the chat, if you have questions while we are discussing with the panelists, and I ask that you put your questions into the chat. And we will leave time at the end of this conversation for those questions in the chat, as well as any other questions that you may have. So let's just jump into it. First of all, we have Maurice Mowentz. Maurice operates and is the owner of the Sherman Park grocery store, the only grocery store on his side of town in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We have R.F. Bowie, the president of G.F. Bowie Company. And if you read it, you'll see B-U-C-H-E, which you would say Boucher, but he's going to tell us why it's really Bowie. And then, of course, we're going to start our conversation today with Stephanie Johnson. Stephanie is the Group Vice President of Government Relations for the National Grocers Association. Stephanie, on a daily basis, addresses the issues and the questions related to grocery stores operating in the communities that we are discussing here today, as well as the grocery stores operating across America. The NGA is a great partner with FSF and an even better partner to those stores that are operating in these communities. And so we're delighted that she is joining us here today. So Stephanie, let me kick it off with you. What should people understand about the role that small and independent grocers play in food access, and why should they care about how SNAP factors into the ability of these operators to serve the communities reliably and sustainably? Some people will say, let's worry about the families, not worry about the grocery stores. Tell us why we need to worry about these grocery stores.
Thanks so much, Arthur, and I'm so happy that NGA was able to join today, and that we've got some of our members on the line who have really, really impactful stories. I'm looking forward to hearing from them. Grocers are hugely important to the SNAP program because they are, the private and public-private partnership that built the SNAP program. And so this public-private partnership has been running very successfully and efficiently for decades. and we want to keep it that way. So a little bit on independent grocers. Our members are the what we would call the true entrepreneurs of the grocery industry. They're dedicated to their customers, their associates, and their communities. Much of our membership is comprised of family owned and operated small businesses, like you'll hear from RF, where he's been in business in the grocery space for decades, and many generations in his family. Um, our About half of our members are single store operators, which means that they only have one store. And oftentimes those stores are the only store in that community. Another quarter of our membership has less than 5 stores. So many of our members are, really centralized and really understand the needs of their individual communities. We also support the wholesalers. So those are the folks that help distribute product to the independent grocers. And independent grocers account for about 33% of grocery sales nationwide, which is about $250 billion, and they support over 1 million American jobs. And so SNAP plays an integral part in the grocery system, and it has for decades. Because those SNAP dollars are really reliable, folks are able to determine what communities they can put a grocery store, and that often allows a company to make sure that there's not a end of food desert, because they're able to put a grocery store there in that community and support folks because of those SNAP dollars. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that today. We estimate that SNAP supports almost 400,000 jobs in the United States, and millions in wages. So we are very concerned about these changes that are coming forward. But our members, because some of them serve these low-income communities with high rates of SNAP participation, they have high SNAP sales. And so big changes to SNAP will really impact their sales and their stores and their ability to serve their communities. Like I mentioned, our members are innovative. They do mobile markets, they do food lockers, they participate in GUSNIP, which is the Nutrition Incentives Program, and produce prescriptions. They're out there trying to really meet the needs of their communities any way they can. They also participate in food drives. They support their local sports teams. They do special holiday events. They're inherently tied to the strength and the vitality of the markets that they serve. And they really support those local economies, which also include the local tax base that I think oftentimes we don't always think about. So our members have been in business for sometimes generations, and they really are at the heart of their communities. And so I'm really happy that you had us join today, and I look forward to this conversation moving forward.
Well, thank you very much, Stephanie. Before we turn to our panelists, you know, the some would argue that the proposed SNAP adjustments, as they are being called, are not cuts, because in fact what they're doing is transferring the potential the additional revenue required to the state level. Why is that a problem?
Sure. So this cost shift to states makes the program really uncertain. Not all states are going to be able to provide their share of the cost share, and so we are concerned that different states are going to be running the programs differently moving forward. And so this could look like a reduction in SNAP dollars for that state. This could look like that state opting out of SNAP moving forward because they're not able to meet the match. Or this could mean the governor taking more control of the program and changing how it runs. So there's a lot of different implications for that. The other half of the score for this bill are work requirements. Mm-hmm. And in order to get those savings, essentially you're moving people off of the program. And so folks that are on the program right now that are going to have meet these work requirements moving forward will be moved off of the program, which means that those dollars won't be going to those families. We are hopeful that those people can secure jobs, but for those that aren't, this definitely will be a hardship for them. And also, depending on the size of people or the ability of certain communities to access jobs, this could be a big reduction in sales income for stores.
Thanks a lot, Stephanie. We'll come back to you again before we close out. Let's go to you, RF Bowie. Tell the audience what percentage of your revenue comes from SNAP benefits today?
Um, we've got stores as high as 60% with just SNAP, and then a lot of other WIC and other programs make up the majority. But that's our highest store, and then we'd go down as low as probably 20 or 25% in a store.
All right, let me go back. I'm so anxious to have our audience understand the potential impact that I didn't give you an opportunity to really talk about your stores, where you operate, and the difference you make in the communities where you serve.
Sure. So we all of our locations are either on or near Native American reservations. I am a fourth generation grocer. Um, my great grandfather started in 1905. So this year we will turn 120, and it's been 120 years operating in Indian country. My grandpa first started first store and on the Yankton Sioux Reservation. So SNAP and food stamps have always been a part of our business. Um, uh, we uh, uh, we love doing business in Native American communities, um, but of course these cuts are fairly scary for our customers and for our team.
Mhm. Why are the cuts scary for your team?
Well, um, of course, you know, less sales means the need for less labor. So we're going to have to cut prices, or we're going to have to make some cuts somewhere. And obviously, the employees would be the second to the last thing that we'd ever do. The only other thing that we can really make cuts on or do to make up that difference is raise prices. And um, my stores are uh, but I've got a few stores that are in the top 10, arguably number one poorest county, not just in the state of South Dakota, but in the entire country.
Mm.
So for me to raise prices for people that can't afford it in the first place just isn't something that I'm willing to do.
Appreciate that. Let's go to you, Maurice. Tell us about your stores and where you're operating, and the percentage of your revenue that you receive from SNAP.
Certainly. Thanks so much for having me. Maurice Wentz out of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, in the heart of Milwaukee, right in the Sherman Park neighborhood, where we have 40,000 residents. And most of those, if not all of those, at least 60% of our residents in that demographic area are SNAP and or WIC and renters. Here at our grocery store, we combat childhood obesity, cholesterol, diabetes, heart disease, and other heart ailments by bringing fresh fruits and vegetables to our customers that were without for over 15 years. The impact of cutting of food stamps and or WIC benefits at our store right now, we currently have 68 to 71% of our customers that come through our door with those benefits. It would be a huge impact, not just for our employees, but for the community, as well as for the folks that shop here. And saying that equation is not good for a community that we're only 3 years old now, just got their full scale grocery store in their neighborhood.
And so, am I hearing you correctly when you say 68 to 71% of your shoppers are SNAP
That is
beneficiaries?
correct. SNAP and or WIC, yes.
Or SNAP and or WIC.
Yes.
And the potential impact is obvious, and you don't need to state it, but how far away from you is the nearest grocery store if
Right
you were forced to close?
now, it is, right now I have a 2-mile radius from here to the next grocery store.
You're a 2-mile radius.
Yeah. And unfortunately, sidebar here, we just got an announcement in the news last week this time that 5 of the big box grocery stores have announced outside of that radius that they will be closing their doors soon. Which
So you're losing even more grocery stores
automatically, of
in the
course,
surrounding community.
it will definitely exacerbate the situation, yes.
So you are a great example of the impact of the SNAP benefits, not just on the beneficiaries, but on the entire community. Because if 68% of your customers are receiving SNAP and a significant loss in revenue, that will potentially, what I'm hearing from you, confirm this for me, is that will potentially force you into a situation where you have to make some hard decisions about keeping your doors open.
Hard, serious decisions, and you're absolutely right about that. Sustainability doesn't exist with that equation at all.
Okay.
Our doors, yeah.
So, Aaron, I see we've been joined by Aaron Johnson from Oasis Grocery in Oklahoma, and Aaron was just sent me a note telling me that they're having some power challenges down there in Oklahoma. I know you guys have been having some really severe weather with storms in Oklahoma. So, thanks so much for being here today. Let me just ask you to tell the audience a bit about your store, how many other stores are operating in your area, and the revenue that you receive, the revenue, the percentage of revenue that you receive from SNAP.
Hey, thanks so much and good to see you all. My name is AJ, of course, Stephanie on here again. We're grateful for NGA for sure, but I'm the owner of Oasis Fresh Market. We are the first full service grocery store in over 14 years in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and the first Black owned in over 60 years in a community that was once known and called Black Wall Street, that produced more Black millionaires per capita than any other, or that had more Black millionaires per capita than any other state at that time before the 1921 race massacre. Unfortunately, drastically changed the future of so many intelligent, successful, bright minorities. But for us, we were intentional about picking naming the store Oasis, because by definition, Oasis means refuge, safe place, shelter. And we have a saying, we want people to be seen, safe, and heard. And so, obviously there's a lot of talk about SNAP reductions, and cutting SNAP doesn't just hurt food access. It hurts the ecosystem for potential jobs. A lot of our staff live right here in North Tulsa, and a lot of our community, unfortunately, North Tulsa, the life expectancy is 11 years shorter than any other community in Tulsa. And so, said differently, if you're born in North Tulsa and you have a baby and you live in a different part of town outside of North Tulsa, you're expected to die 11 years sooner than any other community in Tulsa. And so food deserts aren't just about food. It's about public health deserts, educational deserts, public safety desert, but it's also a hope desert. And so seeing SNAP have the potential to be cut, it threatens it doesn't just threaten one aspect, but unfortunately it could negatively impact a lot of different things that we've all spoken about already. And so we just know at the end of the day, we're called to be a city on a hill. We know that whether it's boys and girls or senior citizens, they don't have many other options in North Tulsa. There's $10 Generals, as we know Dollar Generals are rampant across the country in both urban and rural, and putting a lot of businesses out. And so for us, without being a $36 billion company like Dollar General, like my other partners on the line have spoken about, it could potentially really hurt us. And so, but we have to remain hopeful. That doesn't mean that we just close our doors. We're going to continue to fight and provide opportunity to do things, to be a refuge, safe place, shelter, to serve people and bring fresh and healthy access.
And on behalf of our audience, let me say to all of you, thank you for the commitments that you make. Because we often talk about opening stores. What you're building are resilient facilities and stores to communities that would otherwise go unserved. RF, let me go back to you for a second. In the rural and tribal communities where you serve, where most would argue, and I think you can confirm, that the grocery stores are limited. How does SNAP shape the shopping patterns? If we are talking about what we want as a diverse basket that supports the nutrition of the consumers in the community at large.
Sure. So, in my opinion, in order to get a good understanding of how that shapes, you've got to know that our customers, nearest grocery store is 45 miles away. Nearest big box is probably 60 miles away. And then, even though there is not real good data on our reservations, we've got some reservations or some areas that 80 to 90% of the people don't have cars. We've got places where we've got 40 to 80% unemployment rates. We've got close to 1 in 3 food insecurity in some of our spots, 4 or 5 times the national average of diabetes rate, 5 times, which is the saddest, the 5 times infant mortality rate here. So that factors into how we have to go to business and go to market. So in South Dakota, our SNAP benefits are only released once a month. Makes it very difficult for a store our size to, one, have the capacity to handle that one day a month that the customers come in. And I used to be a big proponent of trying to get it multiple days, but if the customer can only afford to come in once a month, then we have to look at that. But so they've got to travel a long ways. They don't have not a lot have anything but a basic refrigerator, so not a lot of storage to be able to store that SNAP payment up for a while. So those are things that we use to go to market as far as our customers go. For our team, staffing for once a month, getting prepared, and the day of or the next 3 days or so, it's very difficult to staff that way because at the end of the day, my team, they need 40 hours, and it's hard to. Yes, I can get you 40 hours, maybe 2 weeks of the month, but it's a lot more challenging, and so that would definitely hurt a lot. Yeah, those are my basic list of how we go to market and how we take care of our customers in SNAP for our stores.
That's really good examples for our listeners. Thank you, RF. Maurice, you operate in a community where, as you just noted, you're the only store, and the big boxes are even closing that are in proximity to your store. There have been some who have argued that the cost shifts are being made because of waste, fraud, and abuse in the SNAP system, and they're transferring the cost shifts to states where there are high waste, frauds, and abuse. In when you've just told us that some 60% plus of your customers are SNAP beneficiaries. Tell us about your customers and give the audience the story behind the customers that contradict the ideas that SNAP beneficiaries and recipients are and somehow wasteful in or examples of waste, fraud, and abuse.
Definitely. Waste, fraud, and abuse here that I've experienced in my journey as a grocer. Most, if not all of our participants, I see very little of that. I see more of the benefits that they receive on a monthly basis, whatever part or whatever time of the month they receive it, is still not enough for their household. And I say that, and I'll share this with you. I come from an era, my mom had 11 children, and we in our family at the time, the corner grocery store, we were sent to the grocery store with a note. And that note would say, or we would give it to the cashier or the owner of the store and say, my mama told me to give you this. Because now I know and understand better now, it's not enough. It wasn't enough then for us, and it's not enough for the folks that receive those SNAP benefits. Even a prime example, the additional COVID benefits that were given. There was a need prior to COVID, additional benefits were given to them, and then they were cut off. That need went nowhere. Most of my participants and my customers find themselves between a rock and a hard place and not having enough to provide fresh fruits and vegetables and making sure that their children go to school with healthy meals. So that's my experience and my journey. I have had very little participants and or customers with a fraudulent behavior. It's more so, can you help us when our stamps have ran out?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when someone walks into your store with that note, how do you respond, Murray?
Don't tell my wife or my banker. I try to address it. And the economic system or the eco-economic system that has been created here is not just a grocery store, but we have become a part of the community in which we serve in every household. We try to make sure that they know that we're here for them and we're part of the very fabric of their families. They can depend on us as we try to bring fresh fruits and vegetables and affordable groceries to the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Maurice. You, like the other members of this panel and so many that we've met performing this work across the country, are heroes in every community where you serve. And I want to say thank you to each of you before we even finish today for the commitments that you have to serving your communities, not just as a retailer, but as someone who you know provides a lifeline to many households in these communities. So AJ, let me come over to you because you have overcome many of the hurdles that both RF and Marie spoke about. The challenge that we have as advocates and educators around the importance of these programs is often the ability to tell the stories of the impacts that this issue, SNAP in particular, has on households, on communities, on your stores. Tell us that story that every legislator, every member of Congress should understand about the potential impact on those groups, the families that are affected, your stores, and the communities that you serve.
You know, I think that we've got a lot of smart individuals, much smarter than myself, and they're making some great decisions. some that will impact people positively and some that could potentially impact a lot of people in a negative way. I think, like RF and Maurice, when you're on the grassroots of seeing senior citizens that are unfortunately struggling and that live alone, and when you're seeing babies raising babies that come to our grocery stores, and when you see families that come in that may have lost a loved one and don't have enough for a funeral, and that's what we do as grocers. We help fill the gap. Like RF and Maurice and Stephanie, we're not just grocery stores. It's about equipping people for life, and that's one of our sayings that we say. It's more than just groceries, because we're there on baby showers. Unfortunately, we're there at funerals. We're there when I've got a customer who's getting ready to lose her daughter, and her daughter has um, 4 kids, and all the babies are young, and she's dying of cancer, and she's a young lady, and her mom is older, and so she doesn't know how to navigate the SNAP and the WIC, because she was fortunate enough to not be an individual that needed that, but yet her daughter was one, and so now she's trying to learn all of these while battling losing her daughter. What do you say in that? And then they see the new individuals see the news, and they ask, well, what does this mean for me? And so we become the counselors, the educators, the grocers, and like Maurice, when you have an individuals that um, maybe their food stamps have run out or their WIC benefits and they have a few days, if we can help those individuals, we absolutely do it. Does that maybe take some of the gross margin away from us as grocers? Absolutely. But our job in the end, it's about serving people. And so I would encourage anyone, whether you are um, a part of making these decisions, to visit your local grocery stores, to be on the front lines, even if it's 30 minutes, because the perspective would shift. We've all heard, a bottle of water in the grocery store may cost $2. A bottle of water at a convenience store may cost $4. A bottle of water in the airplane may cost $7. It's all about perspective and location. And so I think for communities that are maybe more affluent, that the grocery stores aren't as dependent on SNAP dollars. Um, your big box grocery stores, they've got millions and billions of dollars. But for RF and Maurice and myself at Oasis, it's about local partnership. It's about local community, and the success of the grocery store doesn't just depend on us as owners. It depends on all of us within the community. And so if the community is shaken and devastated and has lack, though optimistic, as we are as grocers, it sometimes affects us as well. And so I would encourage anyone that's in a position that has a voice or a say, please go to your local grocery stores, even if it's just for 15 minutes, and go to the cash register and check out the little boy, check out the little girl, check out the grandma, check out the pregnant mom, check out the dad that just got a newborn baby and is trying to figure out the WIC card because his wife and baby are at home and he doesn't know how to do the ounces. And that's what we do. We fill in the gap, and we help serve our customers. And so I believe that if someone that's on the front lines, a part of making these decisions, was able to spend 15 minutes in a local grocery store, the perspective might shift. The perspective would go, oh man, and you times that by X number of customers each day and X number of transactions that take place and X number of people within that community, and X number or the lack thereof of grocery stores or fresh and healthy access within underserved and rural communities, the perspective changes. And so a lot of great decisions are happening. But for us as local grocers, we would love to welcome anyone on the front lines to see on a grassroots level.
So we invite our viewers, our listeners to visit your local independent grocery stores, your small retailers serving in these communities. If you don't have one in your communities, drive to a neighborhood where they're the only one serving. Stand in the parking lot, stand at the register, see the challenges that they're facing and the opportunities that they're providing, both for their customers who use SNAP benefits and those who don't. Let me ask each one of you a question. The cost sharing shift or the cost shift that has been projected between up to about 15% in some states. How would a 15% SNAP cut affect how you operate your stores today? First with you, uh, RF.
And before I answer that, if I could just go back, I'd never met Maurice or AJ in my life. But I think we're all talking the same language. I learned a lesson as a 7-year-old boy, but I think all of us feel the same way. It is our moral obligation to make sure that nobody goes hungry. And it just is something in us to do that. So I just wanted to tell those guys that I appreciate it, and I can hear the same passion that I have, that I believe I'm doing what I was born to do in their voices as well. But um, to your question about how a 15% cut in SNAP would affect our business, um, we would have to cut hours for our team members. Um, Right now, we've got a nonprofit, which is teambuoycares.org, that we shuffle money into to help those gap times. The customers can go online and they can fill those things out. What we would be able to contribute to Team Bowie Cares would change. Hopefully, we wouldn't have to get to raising prices to make up for that. But it would be severe. And that's just to my team. For my customers, detrimental. I mean, um, we are already in a tight spot, and both those guys talked about how difficult it is to make it. You know, our customers, that they're in line on the South Dakota releases on the 10th. We stay open till midnight or through midnight on the night before, because we've got customers that have not eaten in 3 to 7 days. We've got families, it's just really sad. I mean, they wake up their kids and have to come to the grocery store, and you got kids that are kind of sleeping in the cart, and they're getting food because they haven't eaten in days. It just is a sad situation the way it is. And to think about cuts makes me completely disappointed that we've got this these situations here in the United States of America. It makes me sick to my stomach, and I just wish it didn't have to be that way, because going hungry, the complications from that can lead to so many other bad roads in life. And to watch, especially these kids go hungry, it's it's sad.
Yeah, so
It's
we hear
sad.
you on the impact that it would have on the operations of your store, the hours you can provide your employees, and even on the potential costs of food, and the effect that that would have on the families. Maurice, over to you. How would a 15% cut in SNAP revenue, particularly with the large number of beneficiaries, SNAP beneficiaries you have shopping in your store, how would that affect the operations of your store?
So definitely, my moving variables would include the labor and/or staffing. My price point, which makes no sense to pass that on to the customers, and store hours, and being able to say we've got to cut our store hours because those fundings, instead of just closing our doors. So we've got those moving variables or possible variables.
Okay, thank you. So shorter hours, so making food even less accessible to the community because your doors are closed at hours, well, potentially when customers need to shop. AJ, over to you. How
versus
would
laying off staff. Yeah.
as opposed to laying off staff? Sure. AJ, over to you. How would a 15% cut affect your store operations?
I think that in asking that, how would 15% affect any person? Not just a business. How would a 15% cut affect really successful businesses? How would it affect a
Mhm.
family? And in any situation, whether wealthy or middle class or underserved, 15% across the board in any class, you would have to make adjustments. Do we know what those adjustments would be right now? No, not in its totality, but we would have to look and make adjustments across the board because a 15% cut to a family
Mhm.
or a business drastically changes and could potentially negatively impact the decisions are made and affect how decisions are made. And so it would definitely require us to relook at things, and we would have to reposition ourselves to, one, be the best that we could do for our customer, and then two, do what we can for our staff. And like our partners have said, we don't want to pass those costs on to the customers because, especially in underserved and rural communities, everyone's doing the best that they can. And so we would have to look at a myriad of things and make a decision, whether rich or middle class or underserved. How would a 15% affect any level? It would drastically impact a family, a business, a community. And so we would have to make those decisions together.
Well, I want to appreciate the responses from each of you that none of you said you would close your stores. And so that to our audience should be very, very heartwarming that you are looking at how do you make the sacrifices that are necessary short of cutting your stores and raising your prices. But I think our audience should be aware, some of you may be aware, that the higher prices cause forced one of the operators that was part of the FSF's landscape daily table to close all their stores because they made the decision, as many of you are making today, that they could not pass along higher prices to their consumer, higher costs to their consumers because of who they serve, who he was serving. And unfortunately, those higher costs of operation, those costs of operations could not absorb the lower revenue that came from not raising prices, and he was forced to close. And so I appreciate the commitment that each of you have to serving your communities, regardless, in spite of what may be up to 15% cuts. But I also think our audience should be aware that there are significant challenges that you face in continuing your operations because, as we all know, retailers operate with very slim margins, even in the best of times. And so in a challenging time like this, the decisions that you were making from how do you operate your labor to the store hours to the cost, the prices to your consumer, all of those are tough decisions that affect not just those beneficiaries, but your entire communities. And I think our audience hears your struggle and your commitment to making the right decisions. Let me go to the audience while we have a bit of time left. And we do have one question that's already been posted. And I invite others to please post your question or raise your hand. And we will come to you for your questions. Let's start with Mr. Bowie. Thank you so much. The question says, thank you so much for your ongoing operation of stores in most rural areas. Can you talk a bit more about working with Extension to implement new programs as well as the importance of SNAP-Ed? RF, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Just making sure I'm understanding the question, but you know, we try and work with every potential added benefit to our customers as we possibly can. And if I'm not talking about the right thing, you can let me know. But you know, USDA had a program called Add Milk where you could get 50% off your 1% or skim purchase, which is going to extend into dairy programs and stuff like that for SNAP customers. So double up food bucks where you're getting your produce purchase back. We try and take advantage of every single one of those things because it is just absolutely right for our customers. It helps with healthy eating, and at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We're here to feed people. We're here to feed them as healthy as we possibly can, and to try and get their benefits to last, which they don't. But some little things like that make a lot of difference, and I hope that was the answer you were looking for.
Yeah. And SNAP Ed is one of those programs that is being defunded as a part of the the legislation under consideration. Are you using SNAP Ed today? I think is what the audience
I'm not positive. You
yes.
tell me exactly what SNAP Ed is, please.
Stephanie can give you more details
Yeah.
about SNAP Ed.
So SNAP Ed is usually a nutrition education program that run out of a university extension, often from a land grant university. Sometimes they work with retailers, but not always. So
We absolutely do. Yeah.
okay.
Now I know what you're talking about. We absolutely do. And unfortunately, I wasn't even aware that that was being cut, which that is also a very sad situation. Yeah, we would have the SDSU Extension Office, which is a local university here in South Dakota, come out to our reservation stores and provide healthy, nutritious options that were SNAP eligible, and they would show them, you know, how cooking healthy or producing healthy recipes tastes good and affordable. Yeah, that will definitely be missed. I apologize that I did not know that was going away, but we absolutely do use that, and our customers will miss it a lot. And I worry about. I do think that healthy choices were being made with that SNAP Ed.
Mhm. Mhm. You know, we're talking about government programs here, but both of you are business people, first and foremost. And that's why you're successful, because you care about your communities, but you're also business people. And so you have, each of you have been quite creative in increasing revenue through your doors. And so I think it's important that people hear what you've been doing, what you're doing. RFU spoke a bit about this with your nonprofit dollars that are available to consumers to support their diversity of baskets and what Maurice and both AJ spoke about of not having enough, the many households not having enough. But you've both identified some additional revenue raising opportunities and basket increasing opportunities in your stores. And so I think it's important that people hear how an entrepreneur keeps their doors open in an area that is where they're the only operator. Maurice, can you give us some of the examples you and I have talked about in the past of the things that you're doing, working with local churches and others to have enough revenue, to have enough money to support those who come to your stores, as well as to help keep the doors open?
Certainly. We've got two main components in which, by the way, we do participate in SNAP Ed with Feeding America, and those dollars also assist our Boys and Girls Club with fresh fruits and vegetable coupons for parents with those children. But to answer your question, there are two things that we do right here. It's Feed My Sheep, a nonprofit arm of the grocery store. As growing up, I think I shared with you, getting to the cash register with mom, and she would look at the cashier and say, "How much now?" And she would give her the amount. And at this point, whether you experienced it or I experienced it when I was little, but we've experienced it at some point in our lives in a grocery store. And that individual begins to take items out of their grocery cart. Well, Feed My Sheep, arm of the grocery store, has gift cards that go directly to our customers once who either cash register, myself, and or employee identifies that this person is currently removing items. Everybody eats. That's street language, but everybody eats, right? So this gift card is earmarked for, number one, the spirit of generosity, and number two, practicing good stewardship over the funds that come in. 50% of that gift card goes directly to fresh fruits and vegetables. The additional 50% of that gift card has to go through to staple items: bread, milk, cheese, eggs. And that's one of the ways in which we've created to continue to assist folks as entrepreneurs. Also, we have a shared kitchen directly next door. We've got 26 culinary artists, and those products, not just from next door, they've scaled their businesses. So 11 of their products, companies' products, are on our grocery store shelves. Guess what happens? When their customers come in our door, they currently purchase their items, and they might be bakers and caterers, but whatever product they come in our grocery store for, there's add-ons or there's additional items added to that grocery cart. In addition to that, we've made our shelving space available for local food artists to bring their products inside of our grocery store. So this economic ecosystem that we've created is we're going and growing together.
Terrific. I think we may let's jump back into our questions again. We have a couple questions. I want to try to take as many of them as we can. We have one here that asks, how have creative partnerships or community relationships been developed or are developing despite the challenges with SNAP to boost sales and food access? Arif, if you want to answer that.
Yeah, I sure can. We are very involved in our communities. We know our customers super well. Our team members or employees know the families and the customers extremely well, and so we do reach out. We do collaborate on a lot of help that each district or community that they need in those low income areas or the reservations. We are constantly reaching out to the tribes, or reaching out to the tribal executives or communities to try and, hey, how can we help today? And we're doing a lot of that through our nonprofit, but the groceries still have to come from somewhere, because that's ultimately what we're trying to do. I mean, our nonprofit does more than groceries. We help cancer patients and ball teams, and sorry, not ball teams, but cancer patients, or wood for somebody's fire, etc. We could go on and on, scholarships, but at the end of the day, that basic need is food, and that's what we're here to do. Is to, like I said, I just am a firm believer it's our moral obligation to make sure no one goes hungry, and we absolutely try and collaborate as much as we want or much as we can with our partners throughout the communities.
Well, that's a really great way to wrap up the panel part of this. Let me just say we've heard a lot today about not just the impacts, but the opportunities that you're taking to continue to serve these communities. I apologize to those whose questions we have not had an opportunity to get to, but I think as we end this conversation, you've provided some illumination on both the issues as well as the opportunities that face us. And it's a challenge, but we must educate our local community leaders about the importance of grocery stores in your communities, and not just incentivizing the opening of new stores, but maintaining the resilience of those stores. Stephanie, as the representative from the National Grocers Association, the last word goes to you, to both our audience as well as to where do we go from here to ensure that we don't create more food deserts, and in fact, we support the access to affordable, nutritious food in every community.
So no pressure for the closing word on this really impressive webinar that we just had of all these really passionate and brilliant entrepreneurs. I think, you know, when these cuts first came to us in February, when we realized this was coming, we brought this to our board immediately. And the first thing that they came up with was no American should go hungry. And I think that that is the true through line between all grocers, that they really do want to feed folks. And they know that food is the most important basic necessity to health and for thriving and just for existing. And so I think, you know, our entire community is really behind this value, and we'll continue to push for you know, making sure that we can feed folks moving forward. I'm really encouraged by the innovation and resilience I'm hearing on this phone call. We are going to continue fighting on all sorts of fronts on the policy side, but I think the resilience and the innovation is really has helped us survive for a long time. And I think it's going to get us through this again, but it's not going to be easy. So I hope that we can all continue to work together to really, you know, raise these voices and also educate folks and share where we need help. I think that's really helpful to me when a grocer comes and tells me what's going on. That's how I can do my best work. So please feel free to share with the National Grocers Association issues that you're seeing. But I want to come back to that resilience and innovation. I think there's a lot of hope in those things moving forward, and we'll still keep fighting on the SNAP side. But I'll leave it to our brilliant entrepreneurs to figure out how to keep us all fed moving forward, and we'll all work together to solve this problem.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. And let me close out by saying, I think we all agree no American should go hungry. And we have the social safety net programs to provide food access through food pantries and other facilities, but every should have the ability to walk into a grocery store and have the ability to make the choices that she wants for her children to provide nutritious diets and nutritious food that will ensure healthy families in every community across America. Thank you to the grocery resellers who make that goal a reality. And thank you all for participating with us here today.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye now.